Hey, what's up, fam? So I really wanted to make the interaction between Soulbrand, Temerity, and the healing and sustain from Flurry work. So I did, and it blew my expectations out of the water, honestly. Soulbrand gives us access to a lot of tools that Rogue doesn't usually have access to, and something you'll appreciate to know about Soulbrand is that it currently only heals 200% of the instant flat amount of health shown when hovering over your portion, and doesn't include the healing over time portion of the potion. And even if you use it in quick succession, one after another, its max barrier achievable will always only ever be 2 times the flat amount on the tooltip. Temerity helps out with that though. Temerity turns all overhealing into barrier up to a certain amount of your maximum health. So our flurry healing, our siphoning strikes, and the instant as well as the healing over time parts of our potion basically give us a multiplicative amount of base HP, which is worth more than all other instances of tank in the game. Flurry heals a ton when hitting crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies, which is all enemies in range of Flurry when we're using Penitent Greaves. And I like to get 1 point in siphoning strikes, kinda just because it's all close crits and not just Flurry crits. So our False procs, our Shadow Imbuement and explosions are all going to be giving us health back. We're using Penitent Greaves so that enemies we walk next to or around will be chilled, and this is extremely convenient for the Icy Alchemist's aspect. Every time we walk into a crowd of enemies and activate Shadow Imbuement, everything gets frozen after we activate a Shadow Imbued Flurry, and then blows up from all the explosions, which do a great amount of damage, even at high tier content. It sort of makes it so that we don't have to use Cold Imbuement before we use Shadow Imbuement. We can just instantly use Shadow Imbuement as long as we're walking next to something, so that we get the full effect from Icy Alchemist's aspect. To add to our freezing capabilities further, we take the Noxious Ice aspect so that our poisons from Puncture are going to be freezing, and our poison imbued flurries will be freezing as well. And then it also makes our False procs go crazy on frozen enemies. And the last part of our freezing capabilities comes from Cold Imbuement, which freezes any enemy within range of an imbued flurry because it chills per hit, and flurry hits 4 times. So all of our imbuements freeze, and Puncture freezes as well, which is just wild. With Cold Imbue and Penitent Greaves, the boss stagger bar does fill up fairly quickly, and on higher tier bosses, we'll be proccing it reliably so we can get some of our crazy damage multipliers to frozen enemies to be active. We use Bursting Venoms for 2 reasons: to allow us to always have an imbuement skill up because we'll be scaling non-physical damage, and it makes Puncture invaluable and the most important skill when it comes to boss killing. We could take close quarters combat for extra damage, but I personally choose to use momentum since I love being tanky, but close quarters would definitely be amazing since we use the control glyph, which scales it a ton. But I'm just showcasing the build here, not trying to 3-tap a staggered Uber Lilith or anything like that, which is about what I feel this build could do if min-maxed perfectly. This build is amazing and I love playing it, and it's super tanky, has insane sustain and amazing crowd control, everything you need in order to do high tier content. However, and there's always a catch. Because of how dangerous physical damage is at high tiers, coupled with the fact that stacking Disobedience reliably on this build is pretty difficult, on top of the fact that we're missing 2 total armor rolls on our chest and pants because Soulbrand and Temerity take up those spots, makes tier 100s kind of risky if you're using Soulbrand. Even when we focus on Paragon board armor nodes have multiple skulls in our jewelry and high item level armors, we're still only able to hover around or approach 10,000 armor without Disobedience stacked up, which is 3.5k armor away from the breakpoint we're actually looking for at 13.5k armor in order to do tier 100 nightmare dungeons safely. There are 4 equipment slots we can get a percentage armor roll on, being our helmet, chest piece, pants, and amulet. So we're missing 1 roll of about 25% armor, which would bring us much closer to the breakpoint, and is what I'd recommend for this build because of how it plays, which means we'd have to replace either Soulbrand or Temerity, and I'd recommend replacing Soulbrand with a random chest piece with percentage armor on it in order to push higher tier content safely. However, I don't want to, so I'm not going to. Soulbrand is just super fun, and the extra lucky hit chance we always have, and having barrier reliably and conveniently, and having access to a lot of damage reduction on Rogue like that, all in a synergistic fashion, is really satisfying. And I just love, like, it's satisfying just being tanky on this build. Everything up until tier 100 is an absolute cakewalk, and we're essentially invulnerable and trivialize all content in the game when we don't absolutely need to have 13.5k armor 100% of the time to avoid getting one shot by fucking quill rats, like, that are slightly off screen shooting at you through doorways or some shit. Everything else that wasn't talked about in this video is mostly self-explanatory, but please let me know if you have any questions. There's going to be a build guide in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day or night or evening or morning or afternoon or holy shit.